Okay, so get ready because we are diving deep into Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah,
But, we all know the sugar skulls and the marigolds on the surface.
right.
But I think there's so much more to uncover. We're going to talk about the cultural heart of it.
Absolutely.
And we're using a pretty unique source this time, a fantasy novel.
That's right. We're cracking open Queen of Souls, La Calaca by Kristen Collins.
Hmm.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. A fantasy novel, right?
Right.
For these cultural insights, but trust me, stories, they have a powerful way of revealing cultural values.
Oh, will they?
Sometimes even better than straightforward facts.
Sometimes, yeah, give me a good story over a textbook any day.
Exactly.
So this novel centers on La Catrina, but here's where it gets interesting. She's not just the icon that we know. She's Mictacasuatl, the Aztec Queen of Souls, like a full-fledged character.
Yeah, and that choice by the author is significant. You see, in Aztec mythology, Mictacasuatl wasn't simply associated with death.
Okay.
She ruled the underworld, Mictlan.
And get this, she even has a Pegasus.
Wow.
It's not your typical Grim Reaper situation.
Exactly. The author is already, shifting our perspective here.
Right.
The Pegasus, her role as this protector of souls, it all kind of points to a view of death, not as an ending,
Yeah,
but a transition.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of Mictlan a little bit because the novel really dives into it.
Okay.
And what struck me was this idea of Mictlan being built in layers,
Uh-huh.
almost like eras stacked upon each other.
Right.
It's not the fire and brimstone underworld that we often hear about.
No. That architectural detail is fascinating because it reflects a core Aztec belief, the cyclical nature of time.
Okay.
Just like those layers in Mictlan, the present is built upon these previous cycles of life, death, and rebirth.
It's about understanding that life and death are intertwined, constantly flowing into each other.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the heart of Dia de los Muertos itself.
Okay.
The novel depicts it vividly. Children's souls returning first on All Saints' Day. The importance of ofrendas.
Yes.
Those altars with offerings. And the use of marigolds to guide the dead home.
Speaking of ofrendas, those descriptions in the book were so vivid.
Really?
It really drove home that this tradition isn't just about remembering the dead,
Okay.
but about maintaining a connection.
Yeah.
Almost like building a bridge between the living and the departed.
Right. And those bridges are built on love, remembrance, a sense of continuity.
Right.
It isn't a somber occasion, but a celebration of life,
Yeah.
both past and present.
It acknowledges death while celebrating the lives that came before. I like that.
Yeah.
There's so much symbolism woven into this celebration. One detail that caught my eye was the mention of butterflies guiding souls back to Mictlan.
Okay.
Is there a real-world connection there?
Definitely. The butterfly is a potent symbol of transformation and rebirth across many cultures, including the Aztecs.
Okay.
So seeing it as this guide for souls adds another layer to this idea of death as a transition, not a full stop.
I like that. It's interesting how the novel uses this idea of transformation, death being a transformation, but then it goes on to explore the emotional impact on those left behind.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about souls transitioning to this other place, but what about the people who are grieving?
Right. That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Often I think the most profound stories about death are really about how the living cope and make sense of loss.
Right.
How do we honor loved ones, but still move forward?
And Queen of Souls tackles this in kind of a unique way, right?
Yeah.
Because even Mictacasuatl, the Queen of Souls herself, experiences grief. She lost her children,
Right.
and she carries that sorrow.
It's such a powerful choice by the author because even someone who, embodies death feels the pain of loss so deeply. It highlights the universal nature of grief. I mean, death, even in a fantastical context like this, it's still about separation from those we love.
Absolutely. And the novel doesn't shy away from showing that vulnerability. She tries to stay strong for all of the souls in her care.
Yeah.
But her grief peeks through.
Yeah.
It felt very real.
Exactly. It reminds us that even when we're faced with immense sorrow, even when we feel like we're breaking, there's a strength in carrying on.
Yeah.
It's about honoring our loved ones' memories by living our lives.
It makes you think about how different cultures develop rituals around death. Dia de los Muertos, with its joyful remembrance, almost feels like a perfect example of that.
You're exactly right. Traditions like Dia de los Muertos, they aren't just about the dead. They provide a way for the living to process their grief,
Right.
to find comfort in community and keep the memory of their loved ones alive.
And sometimes those traditions blend together in really interesting ways. I was fascinated by the novel's inclusion of Haitian voodoo,
Okay.
setting the story in New Orleans where all these different cultures and beliefs intertwine so naturally.
It's a brilliant setting choice.
Yeah.
New Orleans is like a melting pot of cultures and spiritual traditions.
Right.
This blending of belief systems, what's known as syncretism, adds another layer of depth to the story's exploration of death.
And then there's Papa Legba,
Yes.
this powerful Loa or spirit from voodoo,
Yeah.
who plays a key role. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Papa Legba is often seen as a guardian of the crossroads
Okay.
and almost like a communicator between the spiritual and human realms.
Okay.
So his presence in the novel kind of highlights how how that line between life and death, those different realms, isn't always so clearly defined.
Right. It's like the novel's asking us to question our assumptions about those boundaries.
Yeah.
And it really dives into that question of what we're willing to do for love, even in the face of death.
Right.
There's that powerful line in there. It says, real love means you will be there in the end for one another, no matter the cost. It's such a powerful statement because it gets at the core of the human experience.
Yeah.
We love, we lose, and the depths of our love are tested in those moments of loss. The novel explores those sacrifices that we make, those difficult choices for the people we love.
Yeah.
And for Mikta those choices have huge consequences, but they all stem from a fierce love for her people.
Yeah.
For her lost children,
Right.
and for the balance between life and death itself.
Right. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But those choices, those sacrifices are what resonate with us as readers.
Yeah.
Even in this fantasy setting, they tap into our own fears, our own capacity for love and loss,
Right.
and our own beliefs about what might exist beyond this life.
Right. It makes you think, doesn't it? It really does. Like you said, it makes you think. It's almost as if this novel is saying, hey, everything you thought about death, just the beginning.
Right.
Each culture gets to imagine what that next chapter looks like.
Exactly. And that's what makes, I think, exploring these topics so fascinating.
Yeah.
It takes these ancient beliefs and these glimpses into how people have, for centuries wrestled with this idea of death.
Right.
And it creates a story that's both entertaining,
You're right.
but also really thought-provoking.
Totally. And it really got me thinking, if I had the chance to reconnect with, loved ones who've passed, even just for a little while, what would I say? What would I even want to do with that time?
It's a powerful question, and it's one that lies at the heart of Dia de los Muertos, right? It's about keeping those connections alive, even in their absence. It's about remembering. It's about honoring, celebrating those lives that touched our own.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Queen of Souls and this world that it builds around La Katrina, I think the takeaway for me is don't just see the sugar skulls, and the marigolds. Look deeper. Appreciate a culture that embraces life and death.
Absolutely.
As these two sides of the same coin.
And remember, every culture has its own unique way of, understanding and marking death.
Right.
Let this be kind of a starting point to explore those traditions. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Deepen your own understanding of this universal human experience.
Because whether it's through ancient myths or these vibrant celebrations or even fantastical novels like this one, stories about death can teach us a lot about life, about love, about what it means to truly, cherish the time that we have with the people that we care about.